Hi everyone, good evening. You're all very welcome to the Get Active and Keep Well course. So the course is being delivered under the WellComm Active initiative. It's a new community health and wellbeing initiative that's running in Cork, and it's a joint collaboration between the Cork Sports Partnership and Cork Kerry Community Healthcare. And we've 2 topics remaining in our 6-part series, and the series aims to provide simple practical tips and resources to help you in getting active and keeping well for the year ahead. So today's focus is on the topic of healthy food made easy, and we're very lucky to be joined tonight by Fiona Rush. Fiona is a senior community dietitian with the HSE and with Cork Kerry Community Healthcare, and with over 18 years of experience supporting people in Cork with healthy eating. Fiona works in both nutrition health promotion, as well as providing a quality dietetic service in primary care for various medical conditions. So we're really excited to pick Fiona's brain tonight around the topic of healthy eating. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll hand you over to Fiona now to get us started.
Thanks, Owen. That's great. Hello, everybody. I'm Fiona, as Owen has said. Very impressive intro. I sounded very impressive there, Owen. Thank you. I also sounded quite old, saying I have 18 years experience. I'm like, where has that gone? But thank you for that. And I suppose for anyone that hasn't had experience with a dietitian maybe before, the first thing I would say is that we're not Dr. Ava, and we're not the food police. So I know some people may have had negative experiences before, and there's often a lot of talk about what we should and shouldn't eat, and I think a lot of confusion out there. So really what I wanted to do today was just kind of present what is a healthy diet, what should we maybe be trying to eat a little bit more of. And I just kind of brought it down to try and give some simple tips, and there's lots of other resources out there. So it's more just to signpost you, I suppose, to other helpful supports for making some changes in terms of your eating. So lots of websites, lots of toolkits and things like that mentioned in it. So really, this presentation is only the start. I suppose from this, hopefully people will feel that they're happy to go on and make some changes themselves. So the session today, we've just called it Healthy Food Made Easy, Make the Change in 2021. And I suppose it's fitting really that we're at the start of the year now, a new year, hopefully new hope. We've had a funny old year for the last one. Please God, things will start to improve into this year. And alongside that, it is important that we are looking after our health. Not just for COVID, I suppose that's all anyone talks about these days, but just in general for our overall heart health, our mental health, our physical health. And really healthy eating is core to that. Just really thinking about healthy eating, we think about both how and what we eat. It's not just about the food itself, it's very much about our behaviors. And I would find that people, in terms of food, have lots of good intentions, and probably every January there's New Year's resolutions about trying to eat more good stuff, less of the sweet stuff, more fruit and vegetables, more fiber, whatever it is. So we tend to know roughly what the idea is of healthy eating, but it gets lost somewhere along the way. There's a lot of confusion out there about really what kinds of foods are good for us, maybe how much we should be eating of them. When people say a balanced diet, what does that really mean? Is it like our lady here trying to balance out her scales? And I suppose I would say now more than ever, there's so much information out there from various different sources, some correct and accurate, and some very misleading information about nutrition. So it's one thing I think that everyone, I suppose, has an opinion on, which is fine, they're entitled to that. But at the same time, there is true and false about food and nutrients. So it's just important, I suppose, that we do get our nutrition information from the right sources. And I'll be going through those with you today with the various websites that we'd recommend. So how much to eat is certainly a thing we get asked a lot in terms of portion size, and we look at that today. Certainly our eating habits are changing, no doubt about it. We're eating out a lot more, we're getting takeaways. We're not eating out at the moment, unfortunately, but we will get back there again. But I suppose less and less food is being made generally at home. And when we're eating out or even buying out in the delis and the shops, it does change, I suppose, both what we choose and also the portion size, because often we might be getting a bigger portion size when we buy something outside the home as to what you might put on your own plate for dinner at home. So a lot of changes there. The food pyramid, we'll definitely have a look at that today. That can be certainly confusing for many people, and I've seen so many versions of it. Just to give you an idea, I Googled food pyramid and this is what I got back. So I don't know, does anyone, just looking briefly at those, if we counted, say, across the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. Does anyone want to pop in the comment what number they think the appropriate or the current food pyramid in Ireland is? So it's actually number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This fella here, okay? In fairness, we used to have number 3, so whoever said that, you're half right. It changed back in 2016 to this version here. The main change was really, as you can see there, the bottom 2 shelves used to be the carbohydrates and then the fruit, the carbohydrates and then the fruit and the veg, whereas now it's swapped over. The fruit and the veg is on the bottom, the carbohydrates are the next one up, but I'll explain all of that. So just to give you a sense of how much confusion is out there, as I say, people's interpretation of what the food pyramid is vast and varied, okay? So we'll give you the right information today on it. So first of all, looking at the pattern that we eat in, how we eat, we're going to take a look at portion size. I mentioned already we're eating out and getting takeaways more often. Our general meal pattern, our snacking patterns have changed. Are we sitting down together as a family? It's not always possible to do so, but I suppose where we have the opportunity to try and take it. There's a lot of evidence now saying in terms of planning and preparation for meals, that can often make more of a difference to our diet than actually the specific foods that we're eating. So it seems like when we're taking a bit of time to think about meals, plan the meals, make the shopping list, go get the stuff specifically for the meals that you're planning, and there's definitely less extras brought into the house. There's less money being wasted as well, because we're using all the foods in the meals that we're planning. So there's a lot of evidence coming out now to focus more on our behavior around food and shopping. And then weekends, holidays, again, at the moment, there's probably not so much difference because these things aren't necessarily happening. Our habits at the weekend are probably the same as during the week. But still, I suppose just to mention it today, and hopefully we will be getting back to those more varied social events in time. And what about life in lockdown? So yes, our habits are changing, and particularly at the moment, they're changing again. So huge stress throughout the country, as we're all aware of. We're juggling work, parenting, homeschooling. Thanks be to God, I don't have the homeschooling. I have the smallies in the creche, so I'm very lucky for that. But credit to you all out there doing the homeschooling. My God, hard going. We've lost our routines, I suppose, in a lot of instances. We're not maybe going out to work. We don't have the same day structure. The kids aren't going off to school, coming back at a set time. So the routine is all off. And generally, in terms of eating, that often means that we're snacking more frequently. We're around the house more. We tend to just go and nibble that bit more than having set meal times. The stress in itself, definitely we're seeing, does add to increased comfort eating. Again, more takeaways we talked about. It tends to be, I think, our only bit of solids at the moment seems to be people ordering a takeaway just for something different, which I totally understand. And I do so myself also. And more alcohol, again, like all of these habits are coming from a change, a significant change in our lifestyle from the last year. And also less exercise options. I suppose less traditional exercise options is what I would say, because on the plus side, there's a lot more online opportunities. But for those people who would have enjoyed going to the gym, going to classes, going to the pool, you know, all of those things are restricted and limited for us. So it has made huge impact in our lifestyle. But trying to keep positive in terms of what has been good about the lockdown, we do generally have more time at home as a family. Now, that may be bad or good for some people, depending. But I would say generally we are seeing people who have more time and more interest in cooking. And that's fantastic in itself, because it does need a little bit of time and focus. It's not something that you might be doing, rushing in and out on a hectic day. So I think it is important just to take the positives from the moment. And again, as we said there's a lot more in terms of offering online supports for healthy living, both cooking, looking at nutrition advice and exercise options online. So it's just kind of to use the benefits of the lockdown, because I know there's a lot of drawbacks as well. So just kind of a brief look at what are these changes that's happening. Just to be aware, portions have changed big time. Pardon the pun. And really we can see this quite fundamentally just by even looking at the size of the dinner plate. If you see there, the first one is an 8.5-inch dinner plate. That would have been back, I think, I can't actually remember the timeline, the 1960s it is there. Going to the 1980s, a 10-inch plate. In the 2000s, 11-inch, and 2009, this was kind of the end of this particular research. It's probably got up again since then, but 2009 we're looking at a 12-inch, so you know, near enough 4-inch difference from over that period of about 50 years, which is really substantial, because we tend to fill our plates. So if there's a bigger plate, there's more food. So that's just something to be aware of, I suppose, the size that we're using. And another just brief way of looking at it, I won't go through all of these for you, but just to get some sense that looking at 20 years ago there, the burger at the top would have been somewhere in and around 330 calories. That same burger, more traditionally these days, would be giving us near enough 600 calories. And it's just representing how those portions have increased. Same thing with the pizza. Even if we're not looking at like takeaway meals, but more going in for a coffee, the delis, you can have a look there and see with the muffins and the cookies. Again, like they have all increased more than twice the size. So again, giving more than twice the calories. So it's just, there's been a substantial change, and I suppose we are probably aware of it, but it's just to realize the difference that it makes in our day-to-day intake the more we eat food outside the home. Okay. A very quick way of checking in with our food portion for the main meal is what they call using the plate method. And this is quite a simple visual way of looking at your dinner plate and saying, okay, if about half of my plate is covered with vegetables, and about a quarter is the protein, so whether that's meat, fish, chicken, eggs, beans, but your protein source, and the other quarter then would be your carbohydrate source, so your starches like potatoes, rice, pasta, it might be bread, but some kind of carbohydrate source. And that gives you just a clearer picture of what we're talking about when we say healthy eating, much more from the fruit and vegetable group, if you like, than probably a lot of us might be used to. And looking at the image here, so on the left hand side, this will be representing that kind of half a plate of vegetable, quarter protein, quarter carbohydrate, versus on the right hand side, our more traditional view of maybe what goes on the dinner plate. So again, just these small changes can make a big difference to our calorie intake and our overall nutrient intake, because we're getting a lot more fiber and a lot more nutrients when we up the vegetables that bit more. So just briefly, again, what about the takeaways? As I say, we're probably getting a little bit more often of these over the last few months, simply because we have no other outlet to get food when we're eating out. So definitely they've seen an increase in takeaways, and there is a huge difference. Like just taking a very kind of standard egg fried rice and sweet and sour chicken dish, you can see there 1730 calories on the right, Whereas something kind of similar that you might make at home with even a jar of sauce, more vegetables, using your chicken, using lower fat ingredients, I suppose, you know, you're saving nearly 1,000 calories, which is a huge amount. So just to be aware, it can be, the takeaways can be a big source of calories in the day. Just another quick example, if we're getting pizza, the difference even between takeaway pizza is on the left hand side. Sorry, no, it's not. Yes, it is. The left hand side is the takeaway pizza. So looking at nearly 2,700 calories versus your shop up pizza from the frozen aisle, which still would be relatively high in fat, maybe compared to a vegetarian pizza or something else, but it is a lot less than what the takeaway pizza is giving you. So, you know, it's okay to have pizza. It's okay to include these things, but if we're having them very regularly, just to be aware what we are actually eating. So looking at other behaviors in terms of being distracted at meal times, we often talk about this. And this is just, I suppose, more evidence is coming out that how we eat is making almost as much difference as what we eat. So when we're eating, I suppose, being distracted, and by that I might mean you might be watching TV while you're eating, you might be chatting on the phone, you might be texting, reading, driving for some of us if you're on the go all the time. So there's a lot of research now to say that we definitely eat more of the meal when we're distracted because we're not conscious, I suppose, about our eating habit. But also what's interesting is that we are thought to eat up to 25% more food later on. And this is because we're eating subconsciously. We're not really taking notice of when we feel full, and we tend to feel hungry again sooner when we haven't paid attention at the meal. So not only are we eating more there and then, we seem to be eating more later as well. There's a lot of further talk about just the benefits alone of sitting down as a family for meals. As I said, where possible, we can do it. It's not always possible or feasible for some families. And even if it's only 1 or 2 days in a week that people are on the same routine that they can actually sit together, then great. Whatever it takes, I suppose any bit is an improvement. There is a lot of research, particularly around children, I suppose, sitting together with parents or other family members, that it really improves their own intake, their nutrition, and definitely kind of I suppose psychosocial elements like the communication, like increased confidence. So there's very good research that just that change in behavior in itself, never mind what's on the plate, can actually help bring a lot of benefits to family life. So just being aware of these things. Weekends, holidays, I won't dwell too much on it because we're not doing a lot of it. But just, I suppose, to recognize our eating habits do traditionally change quite a bit in some cases at the weekends or when we're away. And that is okay to obviously have treats and have changes, but it's, I suppose, not to undo all the good work that you may have been making the effort with during the week, and to avoid this kind of sense of binge eating, if you like, at the weekends. So of course it is okay to have takeaway, it's okay to go out for meals, excuse me. It's okay to have your chips, it's okay to have your ice creams, so long as they're kept in check and they're not regularly throughout the week, and that we're not having excess portions of them through the weekend. So again, everything in moderation, I suppose, is the key. It's not about completely cutting these foods out. It's just about checking in how frequently we eat them at the moment. So I suppose that's looking really more at how we're eating, the behaviors of eating. If we take a closer look at actually what we're eating, so the food itself, we're going to take a look at the food pyramid. We're going to certainly look at how we can fill up with fiber, because there's a lot of evidence to say that that is hugely helpful, both for our overall health, but also for managing our weight. Cutting down on fat, I suppose that's straightforward enough. A lot of us have heard that advice, but how do you do it? So we'll take a look at that. Watching the snacks. And I think particularly, I suppose, during lockdown, as I said, our eating habits have changed. Most people are kind of reporting more snacking now than they would have done. So that is important, just to kind of watch that and keep an eye on what you're snacking on. And we'll talk a little bit about alcohol then as well. Okay. So just moving on, I actually have a little video on the food pyramid, so you don't have to be listening to me talking the whole time. I'm hoping this is going to work, so bear with me. But just briefly talk about it there while it's on the screen. Basically, the food pyramid is split up into the different shelves according to how much we need of those foods every day. So very simply, on the bottom, we need the most of those foods, which is the fruit and vegetables, and less as we go up. Okay, so the carbohydrates are next, your potatoes, breads, cereals. Next up is the dairy. We need a certain amount, but not too much. Ideally, the low-fat options is what's recommended on that shelf. The protein shelf is next up. What we would find with this one is that in Ireland, we tend to eat large protein sources. So we have a lot of meat generally in our diet. When we eat meat, we eat a lot of it. So that tends to be the one that people will overeat on. And they can be high in fat, depending on the type of meat, depending on the portion size. That can be where we get a lot of our fat from. I think in Ireland, the meat is probably one of the primary sources of our fat, even more so than snacks, which is interesting. And that just more reflects the amount of it that we eat rather than the fact that it's very fatty or anything. It's just more the amount. Fat spreads and oils, as it said, it's really more just about reducing the amount that we use. There's not, people often ask me, you know, what spread should I use or what oil should I use? There's really not one specific one that's the best. In terms of oils, it's about choosing the vegetable type oils. The monounsaturates would be like the olive oil, which are best for your heart. Rapeseed oil is another one. And otherwise, it would be what they call polyunsaturated fat. That's just the other type of vegetable fats. So sunflower oils, those kind of things, the flora oil. They are certainly better than a saturated fat, which is a hard oil at room temperature. Basically, your butter is the best example of that. So the butter would be higher in saturated fat, which can affect our heart health, whereas the oils are a liquid at room temperature and they are from more a vegetable source and they have less effect on our heart health. But other than that, don't worry too much about what kind of spread. It's more just about trying to use less of it is the most important thing. The top shelf then, as we said, they're the foods and the drinks high in fat, sugar and salt. And really, I suppose with this group, it's more about the frequency. Like, I don't tend to give people recommendations about, you know, what size of a chocolate bar to have or what size of a bag of crisps. It's more looking at how often you eat these foods. So the recommendation is not every day. It's actually once or twice a week. Personally, That's probably a bit unrealistic, I feel. But I understand why they made that recommendation, because we're so far away from it. It was to try and draw attention to the fact that we are currently way overeating on this food group. So it's to try, I suppose, and give some sense of the importance of reducing it compared to the other shelves. The other foods would have a lot of nutrients. They're giving us fiber, calcium, iron, vitamins, minerals. So they have a lot of benefits with eating them. Whereas the top shelf, the benefits are good taste and they're adding variety, and that's important. But other than that, they have very little nutritional value. So it is really important that we try and keep that in moderation. Just to draw your attention, there is now a new food pyramid for children age 1 to 4, fresh off the press. It only came out in October. We never had one before specifically for younger children. The one that I was talking about there is for children age 5 years and upwards. So this one was brought in because obviously the serving sizes are smaller. The amounts of different foods that they need is different. You can see there straight away, they have the carbohydrate energy foods on the bottom. And that's just because at that age, they need more calories for the size of their body than an adult does. So they need more energy from the carbohydrates and a little less from the fruit and vegetables. So that's the main difference in terms of the types of food on the shelves. And then you can see there is different recommended amounts for children age 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, there's slightly greater amounts allowed. I won't go through it all. There's a lot of different detail in it, but for those of you with children in that category, you can see there the link and you can have a look, and it's very well explained about what is a portion, how much they should be having, how we can actually help to achieve that. They talk about the size of the children's plates would be, I think, is it 20, I have to check this myself. I think it's 20 centimeters. I was reading this today. Yeah, 20 centimeters for a child's plate, which is about the size of a side plate, that you might have on a side salad, versus typically at the moment, the adult plate is about the 26 centimeters. So just to give us an idea, it really should be a fair bit smaller than what we use. Same thing for a bowl. So there's good information on that website for those of you with smaller kids and want to check out a little bit more about it. Or if you have questions more about this age group, pop them in at the end and we can go through. Okay. Sorry, there's the information on the plates there. I didn't have to remember it. So 20 centimeters for like a child's plate, 11 centimeters. You don't have to go measuring these, but it's just more for yourselves to be aware that they're a good bit smaller than what the adult bowl or plate would be. Okay. So we'll try another quick video here. Is anything major that I think should be commented on? I'll say something while they're on that slide, but otherwise just have a watch yourself. So what it's showing there is the meal plans that are available to download. I'll tell you a little bit more about those. They're for various different age groups to be able to say how you would be able to achieve all of these nutrients according to the food pyramid. So they're really helpful. So that's it. healthyireland.ie is where you find all this information. So I suppose in general, fruit and vegetables, it's well known that we should try and eat more. I think what people struggle with is hearing the 7 servings a day, and they think, oh my goodness, I would never get that amount in. But trying to understand the serving size a little bit better can actually help people realize, well, maybe I am getting somewhere near there. So really the vegetable amount, you know, it's not a lot. It's the half cup, the disposable cups, the clear ones that you see at the water fountains. They're about 200 mils. So similarly, if you have a small teacup at home, that's usually about 200 mils. And about half of that of cooked vegetables is 1 serving. So if you have a fair bit of vegetables at your dinner, you know, you probably get up to 3 servings just there at that meal alone. So it's more about trying to include them the rest of the day. So maybe the fruit as snacks, maybe trying to add in a bit of extra veg to the lunch. If it's normally a sandwich, you have to pack it out with a little bit more salad veg. If you're having soup, maybe to go more often for the vegetable soup, that kind of thing, just to try and add it in a little bit more. So one note there was information on the fruit juices and smoothies, which tend to be very popular, and people think they're doing fantastic because they're having lots of smoothies and juices through the day. But actually, because we aren't getting the skins in terms of we're losing the fiber when we're juicing them or making them into smoothies, and this takes out the fiber, which means that the natural occurring fruit sugars are more concentrated in the juices and smoothies. So it's not ideal to be having lots of them. We're still getting the vitamins and minerals. They're still good in terms of providing those nutrients. But because they're a lot lower in fiber and higher in the natural fruit sugars, the more concentrated, then we do say to try and limit it to 1 glass a day of either a smoothie or fruit juice. And it's a small glass, really. 150 mils is what they say, which again is quite a small breakfast glass, I suppose, of orange juice. So just to be aware of that. And the other thing people ask about is, yes, you can use fresh, frozen, tinned. Doesn't matter. They all count. And I think particularly maybe for people living alone or with small families, you know, they don't want to be buying lots of fresh vegetables that ends up going off. So it's perfectly fine to be using the tinned beans and peas. The frozen veg are a great one to keep on standby. And if you ever have a dinner that there's not much veg in it, or even if we're buying the ready meals, I would always say to people, you look, try and throw a few extra veg in yourself. At least you're improving the quality of the meal in that way very easily. So just, I suppose, remembering to try and increase and bulk up with the fruit and the veg. So I'm actually just going to play, this is the last video. I'm going to play this one because this is the shelf, the carbohydrate foods, bread, cereals, potatoes, rice, pasta. This is often where people struggle with, because certainly in Ireland, we do tend to eat large amounts of potato, large amounts of bread. For those of us who eat pasta, we tend to eat a lot of it. So it tends to be the group that we're overeating. So the portions usually are more than what's recommended. So that's why I'm just going to play this one just to give you a clearer sense of what is meant by 1 portion. When they're saying 3 to 5 servings a day is written there, that's kind of the average, but there's a good variety depending on if you're a man or a woman, your age and your activity level. So it does vary. The recommendations do vary on this shelf, not on the other ones. It's kind of the same for 5 years up to older adults. But for this group, it does depend on your exercise, your man or woman, and your age. So it is important to understand this shelf maybe a little better. So I'm going to play this one now for you. And this is the last one then that will come out of. Okay. we're back again. So as I say, this tends to be the shelf that causes, I think, more confusion really than others, because of the understanding of what a serving size is. And you can see there what I was talking about, to use a kind of a portion guide. They recommend using one of those 200 ml disposable plastic cups. Obviously, you don't want to be adding to plastic. It doesn't have to be one of them. It's just that that's a recognizable size for people. They kind of know what that size is. But equally, if you have something at home that holds about 200 grams or 200 mils, that's the same size. So you can use that either. And just to note, what that's saying is that one of those cups, depending on what the thing is, so just down the bottom there, when it's saying using the cup, so 1 cup of flaked type breakfast cereals, they're not allowed to write the brand, so that's why they all sound a bit cryptic, but that would be something like your Special K or bran flakes or corn flakes, that kind of thing. So 1 full cup is one serving of that type of cereal, whereas if you have the porridge or the muesli, it's less than a full cup because they're more dense cereals. So just to kind of understand why they seem to be a little bit different for different foods. Probably the other one to point out there is the cup of cooked rice, pasta, noodles, couscous. So again, just to emphasize that it's when it's cooked, that's when you're measuring the 1 cup. But it's not that you can only have 1 cup at your dinner, because again, you're allowed these numbers. So depending on if you're woman, man, active, non-active, and the age groups, so you'll get a kind of a range of figures to look at in terms of the recommended number of servings. So you can use those number of servings over the day as you wish, spread out over breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, whatever. So quite feasibly at your dinner, it's your main meal. You'll probably have the biggest amount of carbohydrate maybe there. So it is okay to have more than 1 cup at the main meal, so long as the total day is not adding up to much more than what the recommended number of servings is. So it's a little bit confusing. I find that one is hard for people to understand. So it's worth even watching this back again and having another little look at it. So the dairy, I think, was straightforward enough. We learned about that. It's basically the calcium and protein that we're getting from it. The main thing there, I suppose, in terms of heart health is choosing the low-fat varieties. A lot of people ask if they have kids in the house, should they be using the low-fat milk for them as well? It's fine to use low-fat for over 2. You don't have to, but it's okay if you wish. And skimmed milk, if you wish, is okay after 5 years. But the very young children would need the full fat just because of their size and their requirements for energy. Okay, but other than that, and it's always easier, I suppose, just to try and use the same milk in the house rather than buying 3 or 4 different types. So just to know that you can use them for children. Protein, again, I think we've covered that. The main issue, again, to remember about the types of nutrients here. Vitamin D, we hear a lot about at the moment. I'm going to talk a little bit about that there now. And the omega-3 fats, the ones that are in oily fish. So salmon, herring, mackerel, trout, those kind of fish particularly are that bit better for our heart. All fish is good. It's lower in fat than meat, but the oily fish, the specific types of oils, are helpful for heart health, and they're called the omega-3 fats. So just trying to have the oily fish more often, once or twice a week is recommended. And a good little diagram there you can see there with the hand. So they would say the size of the palm of our hand is roughly the equivalent, the thickness as well, is roughly the equivalent to what the 2 servings in the day would be. So if you can imagine having a steak out and having it that size and that thickness, you probably wouldn't be too impressed. You probably want your money back, but it gives you some sense of actually what is recommended versus what we're traditionally eating. So definitely we probably need to look at the portion sizes of protein and maybe the carbohydrates from what we were chatting about there. A brief word on vitamin D. We're hearing a lot about that recently in terms of COVID. It's called the sunshine vitamin because generally we make it on our skin from sunlight. We don't get a lot of sunlight in Ireland, and certainly a lot of us are not getting hardly any sunlight over the last year with staying in, with cocooning, with less exercise outside. So definitely our vitamin D levels are dropping. Traditionally, like we would see it in clinic when people go to get their vitamin D levels checked, there's a very high incidence anyway of deficient levels if people aren't taking a supplement. But I think now more than ever, they're recommending that the evidence is strong enough to say it seems to boost the immune system and helps decrease the risks of COVID. So a decreased risk of getting it and a decreased risk if we do get it, that it will cause serious infection and serious illness. So certainly I think it's worthwhile. People, if they're thinking of any supplement, vitamin D is the one that I would encourage. Traditionally, when we were just taking it for general health, for immune system, for bone health, kind of the recommendation was about 5 micrograms for children and 10 to 15 for adults. But the evidence that's coming out now is saying that a higher dose is actually beneficial for COVID. So there isn't a specific dose indicated for children for COVID. So we kind of stick around the 5 micrograms for them. But for adults, they have said to aim closer to 20 to 25 micrograms, which if you're taking one at the moment, you might see it written as international units. So that IU there in brackets. So 800 to 1,000 international units is just a different way of writing it, but it's roughly the same amount as 20 to 25 micrograms, and it'll be written either of those ways. So just that's kind of worth a take-home message really from today, to get looking at the vitamin D supplements. I don't work for any of the companies, so don't worry. Undisclosed. Yeah, so I think we've seen that. I suppose just briefly to draw your attention there in terms of, I mentioned already, we are eating a lot more of the top shelf snacks, the chocolate, biscuits, cakes, sweets, sugary drinks. The recommendation would be not every day, but just that we are aware. So 60% of the Irish population eats the snacks every day. I'd probably say more than that. I think this research was done a few years ago. And 42% of us eat 6 or more times a day. So that's quite concerning, you know, when the recommendation is less than every day and many people are eating 6 or more a day, we can see that we're well far off there. And a lot of this, again, can be down to portion size. So it is okay to include these foods. They're on the food pyramid. They are part of the food pyramid, but it tends to be the amounts we're having of them. So really just try to keep treat sized is what we'd say. Obviously, particularly for children as well. I suppose sugar is a very learned habit, if you like. If they're used to getting a lot of sweet foods, they will continue to look for them. So really right from the start, it's just trying to limit them and trying to have them as treats and that they're recognized as not everyday foods. Easier said than done, I know. And there's lots of ideas on how you can help tackle that one on the websites I'm going to show you. So fear not, we'll get a bit more information. So just to show you the difference of trying to reduce those top shelf foods, on the left there you can see with a very small intake of food and drink, we are reaching just about 1,500 calories. And on the right hand side, we're eating a lot more volume. We're eating a lot more fruit, vegetables, whole grains. So there's a lot more food there to fill us up, but it's still the same calories. So just kind of to understand, when we're eating a lot of those top shelf foods, they are giving us a lot of calories, which affects our weight, but they're not giving us much to fill up on. So we tend to eat more and more of them. So just, I think that's a good slide just to help understand that. The meal plans I talked briefly about there. Basically on that website, there is meal plans for all different ages. For the children's food pyramid, there's one for 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and 4-year-olds. And then for the rest of there's kind of one in each generation. There's a few for older kids, and there's one in their 20s, 30s, 40s, etc. So it's not that everyone has to eat the same. It's more if you're wondering, what those food pyramid recommendations mean to you every day, this just gives you an example of how it translates. So they look at a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, and 3 snacks in the day, and how those recommended servings can be achieved. So it's a nice place to start if you're kind of struggling with changing your eating habits. There's also tips on trying to manage weight within that food pyramid resource, and I'll show you how to find that there in a moment. I won't go through all of this. I would say the main thing to notice in terms of weight management, the biggest thing that we talk about is portion size, and we've mentioned it a lot already, but it almost tends to make more of a difference to someone's weight rather than just even looking at the high fat foods. So definitely one to kind of look a little bit more at is how much we're eating. Alcohol, again, just to briefly touch on it, the recommendation for women is no more than 11 standard drinks. A standard drink would be a glass of beer, a small glass of wine, or 1 pub measure of spirits. So your vodka, your whiskey, things like that. And similarly, up to 17 of these standard drinks for men. And this is per week. The idea is to spread them out as opposed to save them up for one day in the week. But I suppose to put it in more realistic terms, like the 17 standard drinks for men would be the equivalent of, we'd say, 8.5 pints in the week, which for many people in Ireland would be a very maybe average amount in a day. So it's just, again, to see the difference in our relationship maybe with alcohol versus the recommendations. And this is both for our liver health, for our overall health, but also our weight. We tend to forget a lot about the calories in alcohol. It's not just the effect that it has on our bodies. It's considerable extra calories. So again, I think when we've had a few drinks, it often tends to end up with more eating food as well. So there's more alcohol calories and more food calories also. So just to be aware of that kind of pattern we tend to follow. So I'm ready to eat healthy. What can I do? What's out there to help? The good news is there's lots out there, and they're all going to be on this presentation, and I believe that you're getting a copy of this presentation, so it'll be all here. Don't feel you have to try and remember it all. I put in the little example there of the food shopping card. You can see it there. That's from the Irish Heart Foundation on their website. They're free to order. They're a great little resource for doing the shopping when people ask about what's high fat, what's low fat, what's high sugar, low sugar. It gives you a little comparison of what we should try to look for. So that's a really handy one. Loads of meal plans and tips on the websites I'm going to show you now. Easy Recipes, 101 Square Meals you might have heard of. That's on the Safe Food website, and that's an online recipe book now, and they have an audio version of it, so you can kind of do a cook along, and it will call out the recipe basically to you. So it's a nice little one, very simple recipe book, very simple ingredients to use. So it's definitely one for starters. The Healthy Food Made Easy course will talk a little bit more at the end, but basically at the moment we're running this as an online course. It is normally face-to-face, but in the current climate, it's online, and it's a 6-session program to cover general healthy eating information like what we're talking about today, and simple cooking. So for each session, there is a meal made which kind of demonstrates the learning about nutrition. So we might look at fiber, we might look at fat one week, we might look at family meals another week. So it's an excellent course. It's been running really, really well. With tutors from WellComm there, they've really embraced the whole online delivery, and they're doing fantastic work. So I believe there's another couple of programs coming up starting in this month. So we can give those dates at the end. And I think there are still spaces on them. And it's free. That's important to say as well. Lots of information as well on general local Cork health projects, growing cooking information on the Cork County, the Cork City Council website. They've included a lot of new resources there for communities around health, including a lot of healthy eating stuff. So again, it's a good one to check out. Our own service, just to let you know about it there. Sorry, where is it? I'll come back to it. Actually, it's in a couple of slides. The Healthy Ireland I spoke about already. Basically, that is where you find all the information on the food pyramid, the meal plans that we talked about for all the different age groups. You can see there's lots of information on topics, takeaways, tips for healthy eating for older people, quick meals, loads of information on that site. Similarly, if you're not one so much for the downloads, if you'd like the hard copy, the old traditional books and booklets, posters, that's where you would go to the healthpromotion.ie website, and you'll get the food pyramid booklets and posters there to order. So they'll be delivered to your house. And again, I think if you have kids, that's a nice one to have, maybe the poster up in the house as well. They've stickers of the food pyramid as well. So that's where you'd go to for that information. Safe Food is a great website in terms of content around nutrition, healthy eating, easy recipes. There is a YouTube channel which has loads of recipes around easy demos, and it has the 101 Square Meal recipe book I was chatting about earlier. The START campaign is from Safe Food as well. It's a sub-site of them. It's an excellent site supporting families to make health improvements. So it's not just healthy eating, it's looking at getting more active, looking at positive mental health and mood. It's got some really practical, doable things that we can change day to day within the family to get healthier. So I think it's definitely one with families, for people with families, to check out that one. The INDI, if you're looking at more medical orientated nutrition information, if you have diabetes, if you have a problem with your bones, if you're looking for specific information, the INDI is the site for Irish Nutrition and Dietetic Institute. So that's qualified dietitians in Ireland. So you're getting a trusted source of information. Sometimes when you Google things like arthritis or osteoporosis, you'll get all kinds of information on the Google world. So it is important that we go to the right source of information and we're getting accurate information that will really help us. Stop Food Waste is a great one in terms of just little quick, easy tips for day to day, cutting down on food waste. They've good little shopping lists, seasonal food calendars to show us what's in season, try and buy more of them. Really good little practical ideas again on that one. And just for our mental health, it probably has been mentioned already, I think, at the psychology input, but the free stress control classes online are fantastic. I've done them myself. They're really helpful. And if anyone is struggling with their mental health, it's just one to check out. So just briefly then to let you know, our own service, the Community Dietitian and Nutrition Service, is a free service within the HSE in primary care. GPs refer adults and children to us. Probably the most often conditions that we see would be weight management, diabetes, heart disease, gut issues. And really it's important to know that we work together with the person. We talk to you, we look at the whole lifestyle, the exercise, the smoking, the alcohol, the diet, and we're put a plan together alongside you. It's not something that you get told what you must do. We're all adults, we're all intelligent people. So, it's very much working alongside you. So for anyone who has had negative experiences before from dietitians, hopefully you haven't, but if you have, and even from watching some of the TV programs, I know sometimes they can give a little bit of a negative and a cross attitude, but we're not like that. We're very approachable people. So if there's something specific you would like further dietetic information for a medical condition, do ask your GP to refer. Most areas now in Cork have the service. We're still waiting to get further posts in a couple of areas, but most areas will have it. And just to know, for people with type 2 diabetes, there is a group program that we run called Discover Diabetes, normally face-to-face, but we are currently recruiting for online courses. So again, you can see that web link if you wish to have a look at that one. Sorry now, Claire, I see my time is going over. This is the last one. So just really, I suppose, to sum it up, I know we've gone through a lot there today, and I wanted to kind of close it with an idea of actually what you'll take away. So rather than hearing lots of information, turning off the computer, going back to whatever we were doing, and forgetting all about it again, which is what we tend to do as human beings. Just if you have another 5 minutes after you log off this call, just to sit down and have a little quick think about what we heard today. You will get a PDF of this presentation sent on, so you'll have the information again, and try and even pick 3 things that you feel ready now to change. So over the next week, I feel I could do this. Don't pick 10 things because it won't happen. But 1 to 3 things even is doable and realistic. There's a little Keep Well planner as part of that Healthy Ireland site, which you can use if you wish. And just remembering the key takeaway points really from today is remember your food pyramid and watch the portion size. Keep a regular meal pattern. And that goes for snacks as well. So maybe even decide roughly what time of the day we're going to have snacks at, that it's not constant picking all day. Sitting together as a family, leading by example ourselves as parents, filling up on fibre, your fruit, your vegetables, your whole grains, cutting back on fat, swapping the snacks more so from the top shelf to the other shelves, and having a look at the label, learning a little bit more about reading and understanding the food labels, and checking out all the supports that are there. There's loads of information online, but just to go to the right sources.
Okay, well, listen, before we go, just want to say a huge thanks to Fiona again for giving up her time this evening. A really, really interesting presentation and lots of nice takeaways from it as well. Hopefully everyone will try the 1 to 3 items on the list.
Even one.
Even one. But as we said, we'll get the presentation out to people as well over the next couple of days. We'll also put it up on the website. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we hope to see you again on Thursday.
Great. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Bye now.